All right, so one of the biggest questions I get from clients recently is just, should I live on the northern side of Denver or should I consider living on the south side? Obviously, there's a lot of pros and cons for both the north and south sides of Denver. I'm going to be sharing all of that with you today, so stay tuned. All right, so as I said, today it's going to be all about comparing the north side of Denver and the south side of Denver. There's obviously some great things going on both of these parts of town, so I'm going to go through all of this with you today. But before we get started, as always, my name's Adam. Love making videos just like this one, but I love really connecting with people like yourselves, viewers that are considering moving here to the Mile High City. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button down below, and also feel free to reach out. Phone, email, text, whatever's most convenient. Would love to connect and just find out a few ways today that I can provide value to you. But let's go ahead and get started, guys, talking again about the north and south sides of Denver. All right, so in no particular order here, but we're going to start on the northern side of Denver. So looking at a Google map here, you can see that Denver has obviously a lot of surrounding neighborhoods and suburbs. What I want to share with you today specifically is how I-25, one of our main highways in Denver, it runs north and south, and I'm going to just talk through some of the areas that are right on I-25. So, I-25 has always been one of the biggest thoroughfares. Most people that live on the north side of town are going to take I-25 to get down to downtown Denver, or maybe they're even working further south in the Denver Tech Center. But really, regardless of where you are going, if you live on the north side of town, I-25 is going to be a road that you're using most likely on a daily basis. So a few areas on this north side of town that we're going to talk about today are going to be Thornton, Northglenn, and also Erie Highlands, and just Erie in general. So starting first off with Northglenn and Thornton. So Northglenn and Thornton are actually kind of one and the same. They are separate from one another, but I always, just growing up here my whole life, kind of bunch them together. And they're just this area that's just barely north of downtown Denver. If you're on I-25, I usually get off at 104th, or I'll go one exit further to 114th Avenue. If you go a little bit further north, that's when you hit more of the Northglenn area. But what I love about Thornton and Northglenn is just seeing how much it has improved over the last 10 or 15 years. So as I grew up in Denver, I lived always on the western side of town in Wheat Ridge, Golden, kind of the west side of Denver. And I never really thought much of Thornton and Northglenn. It just was always a little bit out on the outskirts of town, just wasn't a ton of amenities, shopping and just stuff going on around there that made for a good place to live. Nowadays, however, it is completely the opposite of what it used to be. It is a very booming, exciting, just popular place to live. And I think because of that, it's really changed its perception on locals like myself as far as, thinking of it as more of a positive, good place to live as opposed to kind of those feelings that I had previously. So if you live in the Thornton, Northglenn area, but you want to still be able to commute easily to wherever your job is asking you to come on a daily basis, maybe that's downtown Denver, or maybe even a little bit further south, like I said earlier, in the Denver Tech Center. I-25 is always going to be your best bet. There are times of the day now where I-25 can be a bit unpredictable and can run into some pretty bad traffic. So, like anywhere else in Denver nowadays, unfortunately, there is going to be some extent of unsure, whether or not you're going to run into traffic or not. But overall, I think what's great about Thornton and Northglenn, it's just such an easy on and off the highway access. So you're right off of I-25, so it's very easy to get not only down to downtown Denver, but also to catch some of the other emerging highways such as 285, Highway 225, and also down to Denver getting onto Highway 6. So, for example, if you're somebody that wants to still get up to the mountains on a frequent basis, even if you do live on this Thornton, Northglenn side of town, on the northern side of Denver, you still have some pretty direct access as far as, getting to the mountains within about a 25, 30-minute drive. So not going to be as close as if you're living in Lakewood, Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Golden. However, I do feel that Thornton is really unique in the sense that it's north, but it's also still very accessible to get out west. And also you have some incredible views in this part of the northern side of Denver. You have a little bit different perspective of the foothills, and it's just a little bit more expansive. I think when you're closer in Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, some of those areas, you only can see kind of immediate mountains. You don't have this really expansive, further back perspective where you can see the entire range, which I think is really cool. So definitely Thornton and Northglenn have a very, in my opinion, high up on my list of views of the foothills. Last thing I'll say on this northern side of town with Thornton and Northglenn is if you are a family and school districts are important to you, definitely do your own research. I always recommend to my customers to check out a website called niche.com. And on that website, as you can see here, there's a lot of really good, highly rated schools in these Adams 27J school district. So that's what a lot of the Thornton and Northglenn area is going to be in, Adams 27J. However, you're also on this cusp of a very small sliver of Boulder School District. So that's especially the case when you're in the Erie area. On that far northwestern side of Erie, you're able to actually be in the Boulder School District. Boulder School District is always in the top 3 in the entire state. So if you're ever lucky enough to get into that school district, that's quite a big selling point for real estate. In fact, I was recently out at a Lennar Homes. They're a new construction community in this part of upper northern Thornton, northern Northglenn, and even just a little bit in that Erie area. And they actually said that by just being about a mile over to the west and in that Boulder School District, that put about $100,000 premium on those homes over the homes that were in the Adams 27J School District, just barely east of there. So there's definitely some significant value in homes just related specifically to the school district. So something to keep in mind if that's important to you. So the one last thing I'll say about Thornton and Northglenn before moving briefly into Erie. With Thornton and Northglenn, it is always, an area that's seeing a lot of expansion with upgrades, with shopping centers, and just a lot more to do where you're able to kind of stay in this area as opposed to having to leave the Thornton and Northglenn area just to get to some better shopping and some of these other amenities that are a little bit more, in my opinion, a little bit more prevalent and probably a little bit more superior down in that southern side of Denver as opposed to up here up north. But there's still a ton of options. They recently just developed a brand new Topgolf up in Northglenn, Thornton area, which is really fun to check out. And, again, they're just always expanding and there's a lot of stuff going on up here. So if this is an area that maybe doesn't really ring a bell to you, you're not super familiar with it, definitely recommend, reach out. I'd love to send you a neighborhood guide on Thornton and on Northglenn and also one on Erie if these areas do seem interesting to you. So let me know in the comments below and I'll send that over to you. So before we move into the southern side of Denver, the last thing I'll say about the north is Erie. So Erie, or more specifically Erie Highlands, is one of my favorite neighborhoods. I recently actually featured it as my top 3 neighborhood in all of Denver for 2024. But I think one of the reasons why this is really my top neighborhood for 2024 is just its convenience for, again, people that have families that are in the elementary to middle to high school age, because you have all this stuff directly out your back door where you're able to, in a lot of cases, even have your children walk to school from your house in this Erie Highlands neighborhood. So just a very unique aspect that you don't see that often anymore. And I think a lot of families are really appreciating that aspect of being able to be living right next to where all the schools are and have a little bit more sense of security. And I don't like to always use the word safe, but it just has a little bit more of that community feel where people are able to let their guard down a little bit more when it comes to their kids coming to and from school and just having a very positive neighborhood to enjoy with all the other families and people that are living there for the same reason that you are. Definitely Erie Highlands, again, one of my top neighborhoods for 2024. It's in this northern side of Denver. Definitely worth checking out. Pausing the video for 2 seconds, just want to remind you, my name is Adam Lang. I'm a licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado. Love connecting with viewers just like yourselves, providing value in any way that I can. So that phone number, email, all that info that's popping up down below, would love to connect with you. So please reach out. And don't forget that like and that subscribe button, hit that as well, please. Every week I have new videos just like this. I want to make sure you're the first ones to receive them. But for now, let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, so we went through some of the pros and cons of the northern side of Denver. Now, let's talk for a little bit about the south side. So I'm a little bit impartial because I actually recently moved to the southern side of Denver, and I've been very, very pleasantly surprised. This is an area that I didn't really know too much about before I moved down to, I live in Grant Ranch, which is in the Littleton area, southern side of Denver. But, growing up as a kid, I just had a lot of family that lived over this side of town, but I was always somebody that wanted to stick more to the western side. That way I was closer to the mountains and closer to getting up on I-70 and up to the mountains to go skiing on the weekends and just enjoying the nature piece of living in Denver. But southern Denver, Littleton I'll use use as my main example today, is still very accessible to the mountains. So that whole stigma that I had previously of it being too far away for commuting really went out the window, and not something that I really look at as a con like I did before I had moved out to this part of town. I will say that the southern side of Denver also has a lot more development. Some of these neighborhoods are more affluent, so with that comes a little bit fancier shopping options, a little bit nicer malls. Two of the ones that have been around forever since I was a kid are Park Meadows. So Park Meadows is one of the best shopping centers down on the southern side of town, as well as another one that's even further south called Castle Rock. So Castle Rock, you're really almost getting about halfway down to Colorado Springs, so I really wouldn't consider that southern Denver, but I just want to make the point that you do have a lot more of the shopping options on the southern side of Denver as opposed to Thornton and North Glen and that northern side. That is changing though on a daily, monthly, yearly basis. So I think northern Denver is seeing a lot more development at the moment. So I think that's an area that's always going to continue to see more and more options and really improve on that front. Nowadays, a lot of people aren't commuting for work on a daily basis. Maybe they're at some sort of a hybrid schedule where they only go into the office 3 days a week. With that being said, and if that might be you, I think that really opens up the door to a lot more options when it comes to housing and where you might be considering living in Denver. I think, my personal opinion, if you're not commuting on a daily basis and maybe it's more like a 3 times a week type scenario, it might be worth considering living a little bit further on the outskirts of town and enjoying some of those other perks, such as being closer to Mother Nature, having larger lots, a little bit more privacy, and for a lot of situations, better views of the foothills and even of the city. So, if that might be you, it is worth considering some of these areas, even a little bit further south than, like Littleton as an example. Southwest, you have some great, really, really cool places like Roxborough, as well as a really nice, brand new construction development called Sterling Ranch. I've done a bunch of really great in-home video tours of Sterling Ranch, so make sure you check out some of those if this is an area that might be piquing your interest. One last pro I'll leave you with regarding the southern side of Denver is, I talked earlier about Boulder and also Adams 27J as far as being 2 really good school districts. There's also one of the best in all of Colorado that's down south, and that's just going to be the Littleton school districts. There's also a private school in Highlands Ranch that is always touted as one of the best in the entire country when it comes to athletics, and that would be Valor. Valor actually recently had Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the best players right now in the NFL, running back on the 49ers. He recently won MVP. This is another example just of the high caliber athlete that was groomed and built up through the Valor school system. So some great athletes come out of Valor, but also just a testament to how good the school districts are in this southern side of Denver, in that Littleton and Highlands Ranch area. So what I'll leave you with as far as cons for the southern side of Denver is just going to be, if you're somebody that's considering new construction and you do have a bit of a budget. When I say a bit of a budget, I really just mean if you're trying to keep the budget below, I would say $800,000, you're going to have a lot fewer options on the southern side of Denver as you would going a little bit further up north in that Brighton and Erie area, as well as even Thornton and North Glen. So, if price point is really the biggest factor over everything else, and you just want to get the nicest quality home for the best possible price, I would recommend maybe focusing a little bit more on the northern side of Denver. However, I will say that, when you work with a professional like myself, I'll find you great options in any part of town. But that is something to consider as far as just the amount of choice you're going to have for homes. If it's specific to new construction, you might want to focus a little bit more on that northern side of Denver. All right, so there you have it. Hopefully I shared a few pros and cons of both the north and south side of Denver with you today. There's great options no matter what part of Denver you're searching for. I think that the biggest takeaways from today would really be, whether or not you're commuting on a daily basis for work. If you're not, that might allow you to expand your search area for a home to be a little bit wider, where you might have a little bit longer commute on those couple days a week where you are still going into the office, but then on the rest of the days when you're not having to commute, being able to be in an area that might be a little bit more dramatic when it comes to views, also the size of your lot, potentially the newer homes with some of these new construction communities, just all these other factors that go into, what part of town you're looking for and how important these certain things are. So I'll leave you guys with this. If either of these 2 parts of Denver are appealing to you, feel free to reach out. I would love to connect on a quick 30-minute strategy session. I can share a little bit more specifics with you. What works great is I have clients and just customers and just people that want to learn more about Denver. We'll jump on a Zoom call and I'll actually log in to my MLS realtor only specific portal and actually search for homes with you in real time, just so you can really get a good sense of what's available at the moment and just really explain to you some of these nuances when it comes to parts of town and some of these maybe hidden areas that other realtors that aren't Colorado natives like myself might not even know about. So you guys, hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, hit that like and that subscribe button. Release 2 videos every single week, and I want to make sure you're the first to receive them. So do that for me, please. And until next week, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you then. Bye.